Vermont is often celebrated for the lush beauty of its green mountain landscapes and its abundant maple syrup production. Yet, beneath that picturesque geography lie the remains of communities that ultimately lost their battle against time and nature. Many areas that were once centers of logging, mining, and farming settlements now leave behind nothing more than foundation pits or silent stretches of forest. In Vermont, the phenomenon of ghost towns is not simply the material of horror stories, but the result of economic shifts, failed infrastructure, and ongoing population migration that continues even today. From towns with a population of 0 to settlements now standing on the edge of extinction, these are 15 ghost towns in Vermont that hold hidden histories beneath the trees. First, Glastenbury represents the most extreme example of a town that is truly dead in an administrative sense. At its height in the 19th century, the area was known as a busy center for logging and charcoal production. Once the timber resources were exhausted, historians note that the population collapsed rapidly until in 1937, the state of Vermont revoked its town status because no functioning government remained. Current data shows its permanent population is 0. All that remains is dense forest within the Bennington Triangle, an area widely known for reports of mysterious disappearances between 1945 and 1950. This has given Glastenbury an aura of the supernatural, even though its ghost town reality was driven purely by the economic collapse of the timber industry. To this day, there is still no paved road leading to the former town center, forcing anyone who wishes to see its remnants to hike in along the long trail. While Glastenbury faded slowly as residents drifted away, Greenbank's Hollow met its end through a single fatal incident within the span of only hours. Yes, this town was destroyed dramatically in one night. Located near Danville, it was once an advanced wool manufacturing hub, centered around a massive 5-story mill complex. But on December 14, 1885, a devastating fire consumed the entire mill, the general store, the post office, and the town's bridge crossing. Because the owners lacked sufficient insurance, the settlement was never rebuilt. Today, the site has been preserved as a historical park, where visitors can still see the grand stone foundations and a reconstructed covered bridge. Interestingly, the water-powered energy system used by the mill was considered among the most advanced in northern Vermont at the time. Proof of how technologically sophisticated rural industry once was before it turned to ash. Destruction by fire is terrifying, but there is an even quieter kind of ruin when a town slowly disappears beneath the surface of water. Somerset holds a tragic history because it was not merely abandoned. Once, it was home to hundreds of logging workers. When the timber industry declined in the early 20th century, an electric company saw potential in the local river for hydroelectric development. The construction of the Somerset Dam, completed in 1913, caused much of the original settlement area to be flooded beneath the reservoir. The town's status was officially revoked in 1937, alongside Glastenbury. Today, the area is managed as wilderness by the Federal Forest Service. For hikers, traces of Somerset's history remain in the form of old paths and roads that abruptly end at the edge of the cold, silent water. Leaving behind a town swallowed by water may feel bitter, but within Basin State Park lie the remnants of West Castleton, a settlement that rose during the boom of Vermont's slate industry. In the mid-19th century, the area was populated by Italian and Irish immigrants who worked in the massive quarries nearby. So why did it become a ghost town? Global competition and the invention of cheaper roofing materials caused slate demand to collapse sharply in the early 20th century. By the 1930s, the town was essentially abandoned. One of the most fascinating features today is the Slate History Trail, which leads visitors past the ruins of workers' stone homes that still stand upright. Even in decay, the durability of slate structures reflects the material quality that once made West Castleton prosperous, before it was ultimately overtaken by modern innovation. Ricker Basin, located within Little River State Park, is a reminder of how unforgiving Vermont's natural forces can be. This town was a fairly successful farming and logging community until the early 1900s. But its position in a low valley made it highly vulnerable to disaster. The Great Flood of 1927 destroyed much of the town's infrastructure, and before residents could fully recover, the Great Depression and the construction of flood control dams forced the last families to leave. Even today, visitors can still find the rusting remains of tools and machinery from the 1930s abandoned deep in the forest, creating a surreal landscape for explorers. Historical records note that the Ricker family, founders of the settlement, held on the longest before finally surrendering to isolation and extreme weather. Beyond natural disasters, Copperfield in Vermont collapsed under the weight of greed and the downfall of the copper mining industry. In the 1880s, this area, then known as Ely Mine, was one of the largest copper operations in the United States, employing thousands of workers. Copperfield was once a wild and bustling town, filled with workers' housing, shops, and a massive processing facility. But everything unraveled with the Ely War in 1883, a major riot when unpaid workers stormed the company's armory. After the mine closed, the town was abandoned almost immediately. Today, Copperfield is an EPA Superfund site due to toxic mining waste that contaminated the soil. For modern explorers, it offers an apocalyptic view. Rusting machinery, ruins, and orange-stained earth that looks eerily catastrophic from above. Elsewhere, Fayville is the pure definition of a ghost town completely reclaimed by nature. Hidden deep within the forests of the Glastenbury and Shaftesbury region, Fayville was once a self-sustaining 19th century logging settlement. The town had organized roads, permanent homes, and a population large enough to support a functioning local economy. But as timber supplies were exhausted and transportation access became increasingly difficult through the harsh terrain, residents began packing up and leaving for good. What makes Fayville especially compelling for storytellers and content creators is its visual presence. Even today, you can still find clear cellar holes, the stone foundation pits of former homes, scattered through the woods, along with rusting remnants of old farming equipment. It wasn't only iron that once promised instant wealth. Vermont also experienced a far more glittering ambition, one that ended just as empty. Few realize that Vermont once had its own gold rush, and Plymouth Five Corners was at its center. In the 1850s, the discovery of small gold flakes in local rivers drew thousands of hopeful prospectors seeking sudden fortune. The town expanded rapidly, with hotels, bars, and mining operations springing up almost overnight. But the reality was harsh. Extracting and processing gold in Vermont proved far more expensive than the gold itself was worth. Within only a few decades, the settlement was abandoned. Today, the area has returned to quiet state forest land. Interestingly, even though Plymouth Five Corners is long gone, amateur gold panning is still occasionally practiced in nearby streams, though no one can build a town from it anymore. After exploring towns that have been completely deserted, we turn to a place that is technically still inhabited, yet feels as though it is drifting toward a long sleep. One such example is Granby, often described as the most remote town in Vermont. Recent estimates place its population at only around 70 to 80 people. There is no post office, no grocery store, and in many areas, not even reliable cell service. Granby is a remaining fragment of the logging boom that once defined the Northeast Kingdom. While it still exists administratively, its steady population decline and the absence of younger generations have earned it the haunting nickname, a ghost town in the making. While Granby struggles with extreme isolation, Grafton often appears on lists of the most beautiful towns in America. Yet beneath that beauty lies a serious demographic fragility. In the 19th century, Grafton's population reached more than 1,500 residents. Today, its permanent population has shrunk dramatically to only around 600 people. Although the town's buildings are exceptionally well preserved thanks to support from nonprofit foundations, Grafton feels more like a living museum than a community with a true daily pulse. Most homes here are owned by seasonal residents who arrive only in summer or autumn. This creates the phenomenon of a seasonal ghost town, where during the winter months, Grafton's streets can become so quiet it feels as though the entire population has vanished. Similarly, Peacham is often described as the most photographed town in Vermont, with scenery that looks like a postcard painting. Yet geographic isolation remains the greatest threat to its future. Located far from major interstate routes, Peacham struggles to attract new industry or business development. Its small population must travel dozens of miles just to access basic health care or shop for everyday necessities. Historically, Peacham was once an important educational center, home to the well-known Peacham Academy, but the school closed in 1971. The loss of such a key institution often marks the beginning of decline for small Vermont towns, transforming them from active hubs into quiet retirement destinations. Peacham's population challenges are driven by distance. But even in a thriving area, a town can lose its soul under a different kind of economic pressure. Woodstock may appear prosperous, yet it belongs on this list because it has experienced a kind of functional death for its original residents. Property prices have surged as wealthy outsiders purchase homes, making it increasingly impossible for local service workers to afford living in the town they sustain. Data shows a sharp decline in the number of young families settling here, leaving schools with fewer students. When a town can no longer support the next generation of permanent residents, it slowly becomes a ghost town for its own community. Woodstock is a reminder that misdirected prosperity can be just as destructive as industrial collapse in unraveling the structure of a town. This wave of gentrification has even begun creeping into the center of government itself, creating a city atmosphere that can feel strangely artificial. As the smallest state capital in the United States, with a population of fewer than 8,000 people, Montpelier faces a unique set of challenges. The city depends heavily on government employees who fill its streets from 9 to 5. Once the workday ends, downtown can become remarkably quiet, giving the impression of a capital that fades as evening arrives. The work-from-home shift that surged in recent years has further weakened the downtown economy, leaving many office spaces empty. While Montpelier cannot be called a ghost town outright, its stagnant population growth and deep reliance on bureaucracy make it vulnerable to economic decline unless significant industrial diversification emerges soon. Empty offices in the capital are one issue, but the emptiness of massive marble factories is what Rutland has been forced to confront. Once nicknamed the Marble City, Rutland was home to some of the largest and finest marble quarries in the world, stone that helped build major landmarks in Washington, D.C. Yet as marble fell out of favor in modern construction, Rutland's economy was hit hard. Today, the city struggles with social challenges and aging infrastructure. Although its population remains larger than many others on this list, Rutland shows the familiar signs of a post-industrial town slipping into gradual decline. Historic downtown buildings sit abandoned or poorly maintained. Revitalization efforts continue, but without the return of major industry, the shadow of its fading past still hangs over the city's future. Finally, Brattleboro closes our list as a town fighting to hold on to its identity amid modern crisis. Known as a liberal center of arts and culture in Vermont, Brattleboro now faces visible levels of homelessness and drug-related issues for a community of its size. This has created the atmosphere of a town under strain, where some local businesses downtown have begun closing due to concerns over safety and economic uncertainty. Physically, Brattleboro remains active, yet it reflects how modern social pressures can make a town feel less welcoming to its own residents, pushing middle-class families to seek stability elsewhere. This is another form of the modern ghost town, one where the spirit begins to vanish even while the buildings remain standing. Our exploration of these 15 ghost towns in Vermont reveals how deeply a settlement depends on the balance between natural resources, economic policy, and social resilience. Some towns disappeared through sudden natural disaster, while others slowly dimmed because they could not adapt to shifting eras and the demands of modern life. In the end, Vermont remains a state of extraordinary beauty, but these silent ruins and fading small towns stand as reminders that nothing in human history is truly permanent.